And President Trump goes before the World Economic Forum with a message on Greenland. The U.S. will not take it by force. This comes as allies presented a united front on the sovereignty of Greenland. The president also had this to say about the U.S. economy.
And today, after 12 months back in the White House, our economy is booming, growth is exploding, productivity is surging, investment is soaring, incomes are rising. Inflation has been defeated. Since the election, the stock market has set 52 all-time high records. So that's in 1 year, 52 records, adding $9 trillion in value to retirement accounts, 401ks, and people's savings. People are doing very well.
Now here's a live look at the Dow following the president's comments. Investors are hoping to pick up some speed after it fell more than 870 points, I should say, just yesterday. It was the market's worst day since last year's government shutdown. Axios senior markets reporter Madison Mills, she is live in New York for us today. Madison, thank you for your time. How are investors reacting to President Trump's address today?
There's a lot of relief, and you can see that playing out in the market action that you just mentioned on the Dow. We've recovered nearly half of the losses that we had to kick off the trading week on Tuesday, and I just got off the phone with a source who was explaining to me that there are two things going on here. Number one, there is a little bit of relief over the fact that President Trump at Davos did say that there's not going to be any taking of Greenland by force. That leads to a little bit of a less risk-off trade when it comes to investors pricing in any potential of a broader war beyond the tariff war playing out with the European Union. But also, this is a continuation of a story that dominated the stock market in 2025, which is dip buying. Every single time one of these expensive AI stocks dips a little bit, you have retail investors who now make up 25% of trading on the stock market coming in to buy those stocks while they are, quote unquote, on sale. So those two things combined are leading to a little bit of these gains that we're seeing today.
Okay. So President Trump is touting what he calls a booming U.S. economy. And you wrote about whether this message is actually reaching the American people. Can you talk about where that stands as the administration looks ahead to the midterms?
Well, CBS News and YouGov just had this poll indicating that the overwhelming majority of voters do not feel like the administration has done enough to combat inflation and higher prices. But then today in his speech at Davos, President Trump said that he had defeated inflation. And when you look at the data, of course, that's not accurate because we do have inflation continuing to trend above the 2% level. That reason that we talk about 2% is because that's the Fed's goal. The Federal Reserve wants to make sure that inflation is trending at 2%. And we're still above that. We're trending a little above 2.5%. We are making progress, though, towards that 2% goal. One of the things that I've continued to monitor is the seeming disconnect between certain members of the administration and their voting public when it comes to affordability. Things like Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying retirees own 10 to 12 homes. Brooke Rollins talking about a $3 meal. Some of those comments didn't necessarily resonate with voters who are concerned about affordability, which is something the president knows and has been keeping top of mind in his messaging.
Yeah, certainly makes sense why those comments won't. Okay, so today we are hearing the European Parliament will suspend the U.S. trade deal agreed to back in July with President Trump. What's the potential impact on this for the U.S. economy?
So continued tit for tat between the U.S. and the EU when it comes to tariffs. Over the weekend, we had some data from some of the biggest banks on Wall Street indicating that this could impact about $100 billion worth of goods. And that sounds like a really big number, but it just depends on how these tariffs play out. Remember, we still have this SCOTUS decision hanging in the air about whether or not these emergency tariffs are even going to be put into practice. So it's yet another unknown. And from a stock market perspective, you can't really trade on an unknown. So investors that I talk to are kind of sloughing it off. But of course, for consumers, it'll potentially have a big impact depending on how these tariffs do play out when it comes to specific goods. Of course, something like champagne getting like a potential 200% tariff would obviously have an impact on those prices. So we'll have to continue to see how those play out.
We will. We shall wait and see. Madison Mills, thank you so much for your time today.